All right, you guys, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Theory and Theology. I just had a little bit of coffee, and so I'm about ready to rumble. I kind of forgot the topic, in all honesty, but I want to talk about good things. I've got some good things coming my way. I got a new, fresh perspective on things and a new outlook on things and a new burst of energy from an opportunity I have coming up. I will not talk too much in detail about that because I don't know. I've got this thing where I don't really like to talk about things too much that I'm not done with doing. I haven't figured out yet if it's an ego thing or if it's like I don't really like to put all the energy into the whole like brainstorming and telling people what I'm gonna do. Kind of like almost like how people say like, oh, I want to learn a language, or I want to do this, I want to do that. It's like I would rather just do it, and then when I'm kind of into it, I'll be like, hey, this is what I've been doing. That's kind of how it was with podcasting too. I was doing it for a while, and then I was like, hey, I've been podcasting, and I told some friends or whatever, or like even when I am like starting to like train for snowboard season, or when I start going snowboarding during snowboard season or whatever, I kind of like to just build up the momentum within myself and put in the action by myself and do it. One thing that I do notice, it's not from anybody in particular, and I think I do just kind of like pick up on the energy of it, but I know that I get some wild ideas. Like anybody who knows me knows that I'll be just like, yeah, I'm doing this now, but I think what a lot of people might not understand is that it helps me. Like I don't usually care how wild an idea is that I come up with. Like for example, when I first started learning Propellerhead software, when it was back before it became Reason Studios and it was just called Propellerhead, when I first started learning that software, I know my songs weren't like good or anything, but like somebody told me that's not like, why are you doing that? Like, you must have ADHD. Somebody else told me, like, when I was like, oh, I think I want to start selling beats or whatever, and they're like, oh, like, do you think it's going to be marketable? And, just all kinds of things, like, when I talk to people about jobs and stuff, and they're like, oh, just make sure you know what you're doing, and it's kind of like, do you think it's a scam? And, like, it's kind of like, I don't really like those ideas in my head. I'm kind of like, I'm doing this. Like, I don't really care, if there's a scam or if, nobody's going to buy whatever the heck it is I'm trying to sell or what. Like, usually the things I'm doing aren't, like, all eggs in one basket kind of thing. It's like, I do this because this is kind of just how I live my life, in all honesty. I like projects and I make projects and I do them. And when I feel like it's not serving its purpose anymore, or when it's time to move on, I move on. Or when life pushes me on to something else, I will just go. Even if I'm kicking and screaming, I will go and I will do the next phase of what I need to do. So it is kind of hard for me to like tell people about things when I first start doing them, because I think a lot of people, maybe this is the way I take it and maybe I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people do tend to have a lot of ideas where they're like, oh, I want to do this, but they don't maybe do it. And so I think I am kind of a strange person to that extent, that I do things that a lot of people might not do because I want to do them, and I'm a little bit stubborn, and I'm like, hey, I want to record this, or I want to do this or that, and I just do it, like there's not really anything holding me back but myself, but I don't like other people trying to like kind of tell me not to do stuff. I mean, usually because it's fun. Like, most things I'm trying to do is for my own personal development and fun. Like, podcasting helps me learn a lot about marketing. It helps me learn a lot about, trends, a lot about RPMs, CPMs, I mean. When I say RPMs, I'm thinking about cars. A lot about CPMs, a lot about just SEO, and just like, it keeps me a little updated on some tech related stuff, social media a little bit, because I'm quite disconnected from a lot of things. Now, ever since I've been back in LA most of the summer, I have had access to a TV on a regular basis, and I've been trying a little bit to like hang out more with my folks and like be a little less like secluded in my room, like just doing my own things. But it's not really them that I don't want to hang out with. That's not really what it is. And I was kind of wondering why my energy kind of gets a little like I really don't have any desire to like be around them sometimes. Like, it's not really so much me not wanting to be around them. It's more so I don't like being in the living room when there's like a TV on and there's all these commercials. Like, I was realizing how many commercials are about, medical related issues, medications for those issues, some kind of lawsuit from some medication, it's like, and there's just like clips about what's coming on next on the news, or just like, I mean, I was just sitting there today, in the dining room that's like right next to the living room, and the TV's on. I think my dad was like watching it, and it was like mostly like those court judge shows, and a clip came on about the news about some person who had gone missing in like San Bernardino County, and like all these weird like problems with like the landslides and stuff, and I'm just like, I don't need to hear any of this, like, and the other day I remember coming into the kitchen, the living room TV was already on, and I literally like shut the door. Like, there's like a little sliding door between the dining room and the kitchen, and I shut the door so I didn't have to like listen to the TV, because it's just always like I think it was on the news with like about like some political thing, I don't know what it was, and then it's just stuff like that where I'm just overly sensitive to it, but it's just I get nothing from that. Like, I don't need to hear about some person with some cancer issue and like they're half dying on the TV. I don't need to see that. I don't need to see people walking around looking depressed on the TV and like, here's a medication that could help that. I don't need to hear about any of this stuff. Like, to me, it's not uplifting. So I usually try to just keep away from it. But just being like, I'm not even actively watching this stuff, but just because when my folks are like out and in the living room and stuff, they're just watching TV all day, and it's like cool, but I don't want to hear the commercials, and there's so many dang commercials, and so I'm just like, I don't want to be around this. And so I basically, every so often I'll go into like the dining room, sit at the table, have my headphones in while I'm just like listening to my own stuff that I want to hear, or watching my own stuff that I want to watch, like Peter Santanello videos, or like just like different podcasts I'll listen to, like Ben Greenfield, or like, Graham Stephan YouTube videos about like finance and stuff like that. Like, I don't really like the ones about the economy crashing and everything ending and everybody's losing money in the housing market and blah blah blah. Like, I'm just like, it just wears on me, honestly. And I try to not get too involved with it. So I do like to be more involved with other stuff that I find actually uplifting and fun. Recording podcasts to me is fun, like thinking of ideas and like thinking out loud about them and like kind of trying to challenge what's in my brain. And it's a very one-sided conversation a lot, but I mean, I think it through a lot of the time. Sometimes I don't. I went to and from San Diego this past week. I was in San Diego most of the week, from Sunday through Thursday, most of Thursday, well, half of Thursday. And then I realized, I enjoyed it. There was a TV there in the room. I think I watched that catfishing show on MTV. And then I watched, and that was during a work break. There were just so many commercials, but I got caught up in the story and I was like, well, I want to see the end. And then there was another show that I watched. I think it was called Guns or something. It had, what's his face? Mark Wahlberg. And I can't remember who else. I think Denzel Washington. Like, it was kind of an interesting movie, but I was like, nah. And I rewatched like the end of Magic Mike. Not the whole end, but like part of it. But I like movie channels just because, at least on HBO, there's not really a lot of commercials. It was just like straight movie. So I was like, okay. But I really do try to fill my day with like a lot more positive stuff. Like, I try not to have too much like negativity just like all around me all the time, because I've told myself I was gonna do this, and I never actually finished doing it because I've never gotten through a whole day when I could remember that I was doing it. But I told myself I was gonna count how much negativity comes up between just my thoughts of their own in a day and then just what I kind of come across just naturally throughout the day. And mind you, guys, I work from home, right? I work from home. I'm not like going out all day, every day, and like in the street and like driving around all day and like commuting to and from anywhere for like an hour one way and like seeing what's on billboards and overhearing what is in someone else's car's music or whatever they're listening to on morning radio, or who's doing what at the crossing walk, or going into stores a lot and seeing like who's acting what way. I'm not doing anything at all. I'm home working by myself in my room at my desk, and I don't think I've even gotten 3 hours into the day. I finally found out how to turn off my Microsoft Edge, the thing that like shows you all the news, those little news, that banner with all the stupid little like news clips on it. There's just like negative stuff that you don't want to see about who died or who killed who and all this. It's like, I'm in the middle of work. I'm not trying to see all this. I'm just trying to log into whatever different account. And, most of the time at work, it's negativity, people's health problems and problems they're having with the system and what didn't work with the meds and what symptoms are happening and what isn't going right with their money. And like, work is pretty much all negative for the most part. As far as like the content that comes my way, it's all problem related. Nobody really contacts me unless they're lonely, and that's still a negative. I'm not saying they're negative. I'm just saying it's not pleasant for them, socially in their life. And so they call me on occasion. I have people call just for the support because, they don't have anyone else to call. And I get that. And it's part of my job too. But I'm just saying, like, my job does have a lot of negativity just attached to it because we're dealing a lot with illnesses and emotional problems and systemic issues and stuff, and just the system in general that just doesn't care for the poor. And just the fact that there have to be poor people in our society already creates like a whole issue. It's just a whole thing. And so, I don't even want to get way into that, but it's a lot, it's a lot to try to dig into. And I haven't been able, even one day, for more than a few hours, to even keep track of how much negativity I come across. And also, I do notice that, the more I'm looking for it, the more it's going to come up, right? But then I also think most of my days are pretty similar to one another. And so if stuff isn't coming up, if stuff isn't just like coming my way and just kind of coming up on its own, I'm trying to work my way around this. I'm trying to figure out, what is this? Like, what is this? Because I know, sometimes I'll get like, in these cycles where I'm like, I can tell I'm depressed because like my motivation is just low and I just don't care to do anything that I'm usually into. But it's not really like a deep sadness. I mean, I can have that there, but that's not usually what's happening for me. Usually it's just like I don't really feel like a sense of purpose sometimes, and it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does happen, it usually lasts like a couple weeks or so, where I'll just be like, everything feels monotonous and I'm just kind of going through the motions, and I'm like, this isn't really like working for me. Like, I'm not like enjoying my days, but I'm not like getting to a point where it's like a problem. But I definitely noticed the shift between when I wake up and I'm motivated and I'm energetic and I'm feeling good versus those days when I wake up and I'm just like, dang, this again. Like, I thought I'd feel better today, like. But yeah, I'm really trying to figure out, like, not just for myself, like, I'm not really just like harping on like, oh, sometimes I feel negative. Like, that's just life, that's just kind of how life goes. And I don't think that I go through a lot of I'll put it this way. I don't think that when I'm in super hard times that I usually notice it. What I notice usually is once I get like a change of scenery or a different kind of flow going with a different thing happening in my life, then I realize, oh, that was really a hard time. So for example, I'm not going to go into the whole roommate thing too much, but just that's the quickest example I can think of, because I was talking about it with a friend the other day about, how I didn't even notice how much energy I was using. And I even think back to when I was recording podcast episodes in 2020, early 2021, and I was like, every single time it was just about this roommate in this household, in this situation. Like, there was almost no way that I couldn't bring it up. Like, I wouldn't even be on that topic, and then all of a sudden I'd be like, oh my God, these people, So even just looking back, it never caught my attention how draining that was. Everyone around me was like, dude, just move. Like, why the hell are you staying there? And I didn't really see it. I was like, no, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. And then, it kind of hit me one day when I was like, it is that bad. Because I can't set boundaries with this person, and the person who is supposed to have control over things, he has bad boundaries too. And, he is, he uses his overly compassionate self to kind of just not be able to really handle things. And I'm like, well, that's not good. And he's, we were all gonna maybe move in together without that problematic person. And I was like, yeah, no. And after a while, I was like, no, because he's probably gonna choose people that, are similar to her, and then we're gonna have the same problem all over again. Like, hell no. Like, and he was wanting me to stay till October, meaning I would have still been there. Still. Now, I would have still been there. Until now. Still. For I don't know how many more weeks. Until the lease is up. And then having to move with all these people again. And deal with that. I would have been dealing with this whole entire summer. I probably wouldn't have fixed a lot of my credit. I wouldn't have saved as much money as I saved. I wouldn't have been able to afford all the car repairs that I suddenly had to get all of a sudden. I wouldn't have been able to, I probably, the podcasts, none of them would have had different content. It would have just been me bitching and moaning about my roommates over and over again, like every single day, like I was before. I wouldn't have had any new ideas really coming in, because it was just consuming so much of my energy and time. And this week, when I was talking to one of my friends, because I got to visit a lot of friends this past week, and it was really cool and fun and definitely needed, and I didn't even notice how much that was like a necessity. But yeah, when I got to see some of those people, talk to some of those people, be around them, some of them I couldn't really be around, but others I was able to be around. And like, I couldn't be around them just because it was just a time thing and a distance thing, and there's only so much time that you really want to spend like driving all over town, like right after work, like, or driving between like San Diego and LA. It's like, there's only so much time in the day. So yeah, I was really kind of enjoying. And when I was talking to that friend, I was like, yeah, I didn't really notice like how my energy had changed so much, and I was explaining kind of how, when I first moved back to LA, it was almost like, like when you like the closest thing I can say that seems a bit equivalent is like when you finish your final exams and you finish your tests, and then your body and mind just like knows, okay, if I'm gonna get ill, this is the time to just release all this negative stuff. And you get sick, and you gotta like, you spend your first couple days of summer vacation like not feeling too great, or after midterms or something like that, or after just like a big period of time, your body finally just like unloads all of that, right, and releases it. And it can be a couple challenging days, if not a couple challenging weeks. And I realized, when I first moved, I was surprised at how low I felt. Like, just, it was surprising to me that I was not like super thrilled and happy and motivated. I had the opposite effect, and I was like really tired and just like really hard to get my energy going, and just easily just irritated about everything under the sun. And nothing felt like it was going right. Like, I could only pick out like the negative stuff. And I was kind of like, why am I feeling like this? And it passed, it definitely passed. And, I got into like the podcasting project and stuff like that, and like musical stuff. And I kind of got like, my head going in a different direction eventually, and, started watching sports more. That really got me motivated when I had, access to TV to be watching sports. Like, I hate news, I hate, commercials, all that kind of stuff, but I really like sports because it's, something you can see that like, these people work so hard, just for these games, and they're so consistent with their fitness and with their, with their dieting, and like, they have to have some kind of lifestyle balance to do that. Like, I feel like my work usually comes from like using a lot of like emotional and like cognitive kind of strengths, and just like thinking on the fly and being comfortable just doing that in the middle of really tense, stressful situations. Um, and I'm not saying that, that definitely crosses over into other jobs. I'm not saying it doesn't, but, I'm usually just sitting there doing this. I'm not like running or, having a whole entire team where like they're all depending on me to like make this shot, because that's my job, because I'm the one who's supposed to be shooting, like I don't have any of that. It's, clients depending on me for their health, for their, hopefulness, things like that. Like it's, different stuff like that. So, it does take a lot emotionally and mentally, but it's also not the same exact thing. So, yeah, I really was liking, after a while, once I got kind of settled after June, into July a little bit, I started feeling a little better. I don't remember exactly when, but I feel like during July, I felt better than I did during June. And then, it was kind of cool, to be back in a place where I can like play guitar indoors, and not have to like drive down the road to go like play guitar, or like not have to like drive down the road to like, record a podcast episode, or not having to like go anywhere. Like I could just simply, stay in the house, and, I'm not sharing walls with anybody. So, I don't have to like feel like I'm tiptoeing around. And the way the layout of this house is, like my parents' bedroom is all the way across the other side of the house. So we have like, I have a bedroom and a living room between my parents' room and mine. So there's kind of like a bit of a distance. So I'm kind of on one side of the house and they're all the way on the back side of the house. Like it's not like a huge house, but it's like, if I'm on the phone, like unless I'm talking really, really loud, nobody can really hear me. At least not word for word like they could in that other house. And yeah, just, I was a little shocked at how much energy that household consumed of me. And it's just kind of, it really is kind of interesting to me that I didn't really realize it the whole time. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at when I was saying, like, when I have things in life like that are going on, I don't usually tend to notice them. Like, even in grad school, I had experiences where I was, like, practically, like, blacking out, like, during an exam and, like, during, like, a couple classes. I remember just being, like, completely disoriented. We didn't have classes in, like, so many different buildings. Like, we had one main building where we were in a lot of the day for a lot of our classes. So you would think, with classes that are like almost 4 hours in the summer and almost 3 hours every class during the regular term, that I would remember how to get around. Like it was one building with like, I don't know, 4 or 5 floors or something like that. Like the campus wasn't that big at all. Like the main part of the campus where you would actually go to the classes was probably not even as big as the whole behavioral health section at most universities, like a UC or most universities, where you have these massive buildings and you're in like maybe the math section or the science section, and you're just like walking for like, a very long length of time. Like I wish I had like a smartwatch back then where I could like track how fast I was like walking and stuff, or how long I was walking for, because I'm pretty sure I was walking multiple miles a day at other schools that I'd been to, and this school was not even that size, and I spent like almost 3 years in mostly within the same buildings. There's no reason to get lost. It's like, it would be like getting lost in your own apartment complex after you've lived there like 3 years. Like that would be weird, right? Like that would be just really strange. But yeah, I had stuff like that happening where I was like not even functional, literally. Like, how do you forget, I remember having some sleep issues, some pain issues that were like so severe. I was like worried. Like, like, I'm not saying I never get PMS, that never happens, but, like I've had a history of having like cramps, and it's like, sometimes in my life it was better or worse than others, I remember, but never as bad as it was when I was in grad school, during that certain grad school in San Diego. Like, it would be so intense. I was like, I don't even know if I can go to school today. Like, I was like, dude, I am like literally like, and I don't really take pain pills and stuff like that, like, because they make me weird, because like I don't really take medicine like that. Like, even when I had COVID, I think I mentioned total, I took like half an aspirin and like half a spoonful of like cough syrup, like just to like manage things enough so that I could like feel like a little relaxed for like about a 48-hour period. But like when I'm in pain, like I'm like, I gotta feel it, because then it helps me know what to do. Like, I try to pay attention to my body and my mind, but apparently I guess I also don't do it. I just kind of push through. So, yeah, it's still been a long learning process of like when to push, when to stop. Like, even this summer, I think I mentioned I took some days off just because, I got in this caffeine kick where I was just not sleeping well, and just kind of my sleep was way off. And even when I was at the hotel for almost a week, my sleep was a little off. I was waking up at like 2 or 3 in the morning every day. So I feel like I'm almost a week behind on what I was studying, because I was trying to study like 5:15 in the morning, but like I was up until like from 2 or 3 to like 4:45 or so, and I'm like, I'm not gonna just like start studying because I barely slept, and I don't work till 8, so I would just lay back down and try to sleep more. But yeah, I mean, it's been like a lengthy learning process. I'm still trying to get grips on a lot of just different ways of living my life, trying to tweak things to the best optimum potential that I can get things to, and it does take a lot. It takes a lot to just kind of balance out a mindset in a way that is balance out a mindset in a way that's just kind of easy to do, like it's yeah, just like, it's not impossible. I think I'm getting better at it, but certain things can kind of creep up. Like this week, one thing I was studying was certain people's routines. That's something I've really gotten into studying, is the routines of people who are successful. What do they look like? What do they do? When do they wake up? What do they eat? How do they exercise? What's their mindset like? What do they do to kind of stay pumped up, get pumped up? There was this one guy, Cyrus, I don't know his last name right now, but Cyrus Speaks on YouTube. He was, I think on TikTok he had a video, but it's also on YouTube that you can see it. And he has a video of like his routine, of his morning routine or something. And he talks about, how he wakes up, and, he turns on Maverick City, which is like a worship, kind of like a gospel worship, praise, music. They do like music videos. They're like a gospel choir. And I think there's like some songs they did with Kirk Franklin, and I hadn't really listened to Kirk Franklin since he was with God's Property. That's when I got introduced to Kirk Franklin, was way back with that God's Property album, when they were like, they got pretty popular on like MTV and all those like music, you know, especially on BET and all those like music video channels. That album kind of introduced me more to like mainstream gospel music, because I've always, you know, I was always raised going to church, but it was never really like gospel music. It was kind of like contemporary rock Christian music. It wasn't usually like gospel style music. And so, but I do like the feel of like, you know, I like black churches and like that style of music, you know. It really does get you pumped up and motivated. You know, I like a good sermon, you know, that just kind of gets your mindset just like thinking differently. I'm very cautious about the Bible, which is a very strange thing for someone like me who was raised the way I was raised to actually say. But like, I get a little cautious when people start using the Bible when they're talking about all this kind of stuff that they're trying to say, and then they start throwing in passages from the Bible in there, because I feel like a lot of times it can be taken out of context. Like, that's not really what was going on when this person, you know, was writing this. Like, but yeah, I could see how you're using that few sentences to like make your point. That happens a lot. There's something about that kind of bothers me, because it takes away from like the background of it all. But, you know, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just I get a little, it's just my own thing. I get a little like, you know, weirded out by it. It makes me a little uncomfortable sometimes. And, you know, but I do like a lot of sermons, you know. I do like speeches, sermons, you know, lectures, you know, where they try to like pump you up and get you motivated, not to like buy something or pay a lot of offerings to the church or anything, but like just to get your mindset in another place. Like, there aren't that many places that I have experience going where I go in and it takes less than 2 hours to come out feeling completely different, usually in a good way, sometimes not, but usually like feeling way better. Like, I consistently felt that way when I was going to church, that you would go in and you, like, not every church I went to, but, you know, once I started finding certain churches I kind of gravitated more towards, when I was like in my early grad school days, I really got a lot out of like being there and the environment, and, you know, seeing the people and being around different people, and just like hearing people singing. I love group singing. Like, there's not that many places where you can go and just once or twice a week just be like singing with a bunch of people, unless you're doing karaoke, and it's usually not free unless it's at a bar, and then you usually can't just sing the whole time, and it's usually like 3 people or so max singing. It's not like it's not like a tavern or something, like an Irish tavern where everybody's sitting there like singing along, you know. Like, I really like that. I like environments where everybody's like involved in the music at the same time. Like, concerts are like that, but it's not really like, I mean, I would consider concerts to be a spiritual experience for sure, which is what I like about them. But I don't know if they're really meant to be that way. Maybe they are, because I'm not the only one who thinks that way. But yeah, singing along with groups, like with somebody who's leading the singing, and then you singing, and then everyone around you kind of singing, you know, that's a fun experience. You know, there's something about it that's just so like uplifting, that I've always just really liked, because it's not something you do every day. You know, like when you're at work, you don't all just like sit there and like, let's all sing a song. You know, like, I know that like I watched what was that movie, Pirates of Silicon Valley, where like they were kind of like talking about IBM way back in the day, like in the 60s or 70s or whatever, and how like IBM, like those sorts of corporate companies used to have corporate songs. And that's kind of like weird. Like I can't imagine having like a company song. I remember in school having like a school song that I didn't really know. Like in the high school where I graduated from, like, I remember it was like In the Blue Pacific. That was the beginning of it. In the Blue Pacific Sun something. I don't remember. That's like where the hills and oceans meet. I can't remember. And then, yeah, the end was like, Hail Spartans, hail to you. I don't remember any of it, honestly. But like, yeah, I don't know if I ever knew the school song. Maybe I did. But like, yeah, we'd sing it at like pep rallies and stuff like that, like a couple times a year. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a big journey. Like I've been kind of just reading a lot of little stuff on Instagram and like trying to come across more like positive content, and it's helpful. I like it. It's uplifting. It's fun. I get a lot out of it, and yeah, I try to talk about a little bit of it, but yeah, like I was kind of mostly trying to study a little bit about, like, not as what I'm studying, but as part of what I'm studying, just trying to study different mindsets of different types of successful people, like what they do, how they do it, how certain people get where they are. I noticed definitely the work ethic, attitudes about work. They're definitely different for people who are very financially successful. They don't really have a negative outlook on their work. And I don't think I ever really had a negative outlook on my work too much up until kind of more recently. Like, of course, there were always issues, but I was usually like, oh, I like my job. It's just stressful. It's just hard. But, like, I usually was liking it up until recently. And so it's a different experience for me to be, like, starting work and not really enjoying it and trying to, like, I've kind of mentally, emotionally moved on. But right now I'm kind of just there for the paycheck until my next phase starts with this new job opportunity that I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting there. So, you know, it's good to challenge my mind to do different types of things, a lot of variety of things. I'm still trying to build on things that I've, had in the past that I was kind of working on, and not just drop things to the side or let them go. I'm still really trying to be really active and involved in the stuff I'm trying to do, and keep progressing in it, and not really let things either get me down or get in my way, and try to, stay attuned to myself. It's a lot to try to do all this at once. A lot of it's internal. Like, I haven't been talking much about it, and it kind of has made me a little quiet with the podcast too, because I've just kind of started devoting more of my energy into actions of not really talking about what I'm doing, and just more so just practicing it and doing it. And I do notice that the days that, I start out with some kind of a spiritual outlook, regardless of how I feel when I first wake up, that never matters. After 5 minutes, I'm feeling completely different. Sometimes I do notice I don't want to do that. I don't want to feel different, and just kind of fighting that. Why the heck would I want to feel just groggy and unmotivated? It's such a weird combination of things of like, I don't want to feel this way, but I also don't want to do anything that I need to do, even though it's not that much effort. Like, I can literally do this stuff laying in my bed, not even put on my glasses yet, and go on Instagram and listen to like something positive on there, or put on some positive music or something simple. It doesn't have to be like, okay, I have to go drive all the way to this like yoga studio and like Pacific Palisades and like Malibu and like sit on the top of a cliff on the bluffs where I'm watching the sun. Well, the sun would be the other direction, but watching the sun rise in the east while I'm hearing the ocean behind me on the west. And like, oh my God, it doesn't have to be that, at like 4 a.m. or something. Like, it doesn't have to be some excessive thing, like, we're lucky that these things are free and we can do them at our own leisure whenever we feel like. But just the fact that I sometimes avoid it is something that I'm working through. I'm kind of like, I think it's kind of like I'm not really so familiar with having my own natural energy. I mean, I definitely was before I moved out of LA. I definitely had that for sure. It's kind of interesting that like before I moved from LA, like I wasn't in college I was into caffeine, but like I don't know, I always had this like weird relationship with caffeine because I was always kind of taught that like you're not supposed to need it, or you're not supposed to want it, or you're not supposed to use it because it's a substance type of thing, and like it alters your thinking. And yes, it does, but sometimes it can just kind of put that fire under you just to kind of get you going. I feel like maybe daily for me, caffeine isn't maybe required daily, that's for sure. But I still try to balance out my weeks. I try not to work like Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. It's still kind of like a tradition that I kind of keep, at least when I feel like it, and most of the times I feel like it, like but it is hard to take a break. It is definitely hard to be like, I even found myself today, it's a Friday, and I found myself thinking, oh man, it's gonna be Friday night and I'm gonna kind of have my time to like kind of not be busy, and that might be challenging for me, and I'm just thinking like, well, what is gonna be challenging about that? Like, what's gonna be hard about slowing down, right? Like, usually slowing down is supposed to be fun, leisure, pleasant, peaceful, not stressful. I mean, I know I have a lot to do, but I know I need to recover too. I mean, that's why I keep taking days off, because I need to recover. So it's like, I need to let myself recover. But sometimes I do just want to push. I'm just like, dude, no, I don't want to slow down. I want to push. I just, there's something about me that just likes to push and not slow down. I do sometimes worry that like the days that I need to push, the momentum won't be there so easily. But I think usually that only happens because I'm not taking enough breaks during the week, or, like social breaks like I did this week. I went out every day after work. I wasn't like drinking or anything, but like I went out every day after work and I enjoyed myself. So it's been a long learning process, and I'm keeping at it, but it's kind of my update for now. Like I mentioned, I kind of didn't watch a lot of those Amish videos after a while because it was getting a little intense, because they're doing all these projects, which I think are great projects, but they're doing all these projects with like, getting people out of abuse, like physical and sexual abuse, like environments, who are Amish people that are suffering in those environments. And in a way, they're kind of like isolated and silenced because they're so, distant from mainstream society that like from what it sounds like, the police don't easily get involved, and then like they just go by the word of mouth of the victim of like, okay, if they say that they're fine, then we're not going to investigate. They're very hands off, it sounds like. Maybe because, I'm guessing, but maybe because the Amish culture has this idea, this kind of, people assume, maybe that, there's maybe no ugly side to, that culture. And I think maybe I try too much to shine maybe too much of a negative light on religion sometimes, of the negativity that can come from it. Like anytime when you have someone who's in control of something, I talk about this with one of my friends a lot. Anytime you have somebody who's in control, right, in a power position, and they have a motive that isn't for the people, for everybody to succeed, for everyone to be, experiencing love and compassion. Anytime you have a leader who that isn't their mindset, or even if it's what they say, but they have a warped idea of what love and compassion actually look like, that's really where the focus needs to always be back at, is at the focus of love. And sometimes these people, in charge, use their power to manipulate others and to not be loving, and to, promote all these weird ideas of their prejudices and all this kind of stuff. I'm not saying it only happens at church, but it happens a lot in religions. That's why there are extremists in religions that can be negatively extremists. I think there are extremists that can be positive. Like, I don't know if that's the right word. Maybe it's called like ultra orthodox, or I don't know what it's called, but I think that there is like a negative extreme and then a positive extreme, where it's like we're trying so hard to promote just all this positive stuff. And then there's another side that's like, we're trying so hard, focusing on death and killing, and, like there's always a population that they're trying to kill or like put down and stuff like that. Like to me, that's weird. When there's like a religion that's like, we believe in God and love, and then they're like, but kill all these other people, it's like, what? Like, where'd that come from? Somebody didn't get the memo, but you need to kind of read the book again. But basically, I don't have a problem with religion per se. I have a problem with mind control and brainwashing, I guess. Is that mean? Is that wrong to say? I mean, it exists. Like, I don't even know what else to call it. That's what it is. I mean, even if you take it out of religion, someone like Hitler, he wasn't religious. He wasn't like religiously creating, like he wasn't creating like a religion where there's like a deity, where you're like worshiping a deity. And look at all the negativity he was able to create just by the way he was. He created a whole society. Of course there were definitely Germans that were, not into that, and but if you even like watch documentaries about like, the Hitler Youth and like those types of topics, just like one of my favorite movies, Europa, really cool movie. It's kind of dark. It's about war, but it's a cool movie to me. I don't want to spoil it, but it's about a German Jew who basically I'm going to talk about this for the next 60 seconds from now. So it's going to be a spoiler if you keep listening. So basically, he's a German Jew who basically is in hiding in plain sight. He becomes an orphan, and he ends up, with like these Russian orphans, and learns Russian, and learns a lot about communism and socialism and things. And then he goes back and becomes one of the Hitler Youth and is part of that society, just in plain sight, Jewish. And the only thing really that gives him away is the fact that he's circumcised. And somebody does find out, a close friend of his that's in the military with him, who's a homosexual guy, and that guy ends up getting killed. Good movie. So I'm going to stop talking about it. And I wasn't saying it was a good movie because of that person getting killed because of his sexuality. That's not really what I meant. That's not what I was getting at. I just meant it's a good movie. Like, it's worth watching if you're into that kind of movie. So, yeah, but like, just that kind of story, you can kind of see just a peak of like different types of leadership and how they kind of like train people to think. And those types of leaders like Stalin and Hitler, they were trying to train, the people who would be teaching the kids, and then the people, who were teaching the kids basically taught kids in a certain way that was basically political views. Now, this is my own personal opinion. There's not that much difference between religion and politics. That's my personal opinion. There's not that much of a difference. There's always a person who's in charge of a group that calls themselves something, and everyone looks to that person for the information. But what I found in religion, I don't talk to politicians a lot like that, but what I found in my experience with religion is that the thing that bothers me is that there is a hiding. They hide, a lot of times, they hide the information that doesn't match what the traditions teach. They hide it from the people. To me, that's the biggest turnoff, is that they use their authority, their control, their knowledge, their education to sway people one way. And then if you have questions about anything that's alternative to whatever the main thinking is of those traditions, you can't ask questions about it because nobody will answer you. It's like forbidden almost to like ask questions and to even like challenge things and to like think things in a different way. People get mad at you. People don't want to answer. People think you're weird because, like, why are you like trying to think differently about this? Just go along with the herd and think what everybody else thinks, I don't really subscribe to that style of thinking about stuff. But kind of is what it is, like I don't think it's all negative, but to me that is the part that's the turn off. The people in charge kind of using their power for wrong. I think it's wrong to keep people in the dark. I think it's wrong to kind of sway people one way or the other when you know the answers. It would almost be like in my field of psychology, if a client were to ask me, do people ever get benefits from drinking wine? And I know that in psychology, generally, you don't tell your clients to be drinking and stuff. And I'm not a doctor, but I'm just saying, like, generally, you promote, like, not using any substances or like too much substances. And so to tell your clients that there's anything positive about wine or CBD or, any cannabis products or like alcohol in any way, and to just be like, no, it's all bad. That's not the truth. We all know that that's not the truth, right? So that's kind of how I see it. It's like some people use their knowledge to just be like, well, someone's asking you a question and they just want to not give you the answer because they don't want you to do it, I guess. But yeah, for me, that's not very appealing. It's a turnoff, because I like to think. And just because I'm thinking things through in a different way doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to get confused in my beliefs or whatever. I'm going to believe what I'm going to believe regardless, but I'm still going to study stuff out. And I'm kind of at a point where I'm not afraid to just study things. I can call myself whatever I want to call myself, whatever denomination or religion I want to say I am. And I might not look like that to the very religious people or to the non-religious people or whatever. Like, that's my own personal thing. It has nothing to do with, like, anybody else, but, yeah, I just, it's kind of my own take on things. I just don't appreciate it at all. And growing up in a culture that was kind of like that, where it's like you can't really ask questions from the actual people who should know the answers, and have like a discussion about it without it becoming a debate or an argument. I'm not into that style of, of things. I'm really not into the idea of people trying to control others, especially when they're adults and they're said to be able to make their own decisions. Like, let me make my decision, but you can't really make your own decisions if you're not fully informed, right? If you're not fully knowledgeable about your options. Like, if somebody's giving you a multiple choice test of like A through F, and you only see choice A, and you're going to have to choose choice A every single time. You can't see what the other options are. They just tell you choose choice A, choose choice A, choose choice A. That's what we've always done. That's what we've always done. That's what we're always going to do. And, I do respect religions that study. I do respect religions where people can come together and talk. I know within every religion and every denomination and every different group, there's going to be the people who really focus on love and togetherness and positive community environments. And there's going to be the other people who focus on the bitterness and the judgment and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be everywhere, regardless if it's in a work setting, if it's in a school setting, if it's in a political setting, a religious setting. Any setting has those types of options, of opportunities to have those types of experiences, and things in between where there's like a little bit of everything. But you can have a really positive experience, a really negative experience, a mixed positive negative experience. Usually management sets the tone. Usually a pastor or a priest or a bishop or a teacher or a professor or a psychiatrist or a manager, director, whatever. They set the tone for the environment. And I just usually have a problem with the ones that try to set a negative tone and a tone of like fear and you need to fear this, you need to do what we say and be afraid if you don't do it, because you're either going to get judged socially or you're going to burn in hell or you're going to get an F or you're going to get fired or, like that to me is just a really big turnoff. So I really try not to really be around those types of social settings, especially when it's group settings, because then it rubs off on the group and it really affects your interacting with other people, because then everybody kind of latches onto that kind of like anxiety. It's almost like when you, I mean, I'm not saying that this is necessarily something I would promote, but say if you see like, a piece of candy on the ground and there's all these ants kind of around it, and usually they're just calmly eating at it and like taking it back to wherever they're going. But if you kind of like drop a little pebble near that food or whatever that they're eating, the sugar, a little bitty rock, and then they'll see it and they'll freak out. They all freak out. One of them, like the ones where it hits the closest, they freak out, and it's just like a ripple effect. They all start like freaking out, because they're all like, oh no, something's happening. It's disturbed the environment. And that's almost equivalent to how it can be in those environments. It's like there's always something shaking up the environment versus, something positive that's like shaking it up in a positive way. Just everybody's so like fired up and pumped up and motivated and positive and like wanting to be good with each other and like caring for others. And, that's a much better energy to be around. And so, I really don't appreciate it when there's leadership type people that kind of try to make things negative for others. And, I try not to harp on it too much, but usually when I'm talking about religion from a negative perspective, that's usually what I'm thinking about is like, these people have so much control because they use something like God, the creator of the universe, is telling me this. Of course people are going to listen, to that, whatever they say. It doesn't matter how absurd it might even sound, somebody's going to listen to them. People are going to hang on those words. It doesn't matter if it's a foolish thing that people don't even believe in. If they started telling everybody, hey, whenever you come into church, you got to wear this certain style of a hat and a certain thing, just because, I had a dream and a vision that God told me that everybody needs to do this. We all need to wear a bandana and a scarf and a beanie, And I mean, I'm joking, but it's like, it's absurd. It's absurd. Like, I don't think it needs to get to that kind of an extreme, where people can't think for themselves, where people can't like freely think for themselves. That's kind of the problem I have with television. It's kind of like I have a problem with this whole thing. You can tell I have a problem with it. Like, I have a problem with the amount that, certain people, maybe they don't like fully understand it, but, I've studied propaganda. I've studied those types of propaganda, brainwashing, that kind of topic. It really fascinates me. I just try not to go into it too much because it's usually from a very dark perspective. But the thing is a lot of times the people who are doing this negative stuff, they study it too. And it's scary that they know how to do certain stuff. Like, I mean, a book that I found kind of cool, it's very popular, how to win friends and influence people. Very cool book. It's not really so much like brainwashing propaganda kind of thing, but it's kind of about the human mind and what people prefer, how people will like you better if you're a certain style of person, what people will like about you, what kind of helps people gravitate towards you, want to listen to you, want to be around you. I think that's all a good thing. I mean, if you have, a positive heart about it, I think it's a really good thing. But I'm pretty sure there are plenty of people that would take that kind of information and be like, I just need these people to be around me so I can manipulate them and get what I need and screw them at the end, Like, I'm pretty sure not only well-meaning people read that kind of book, but yeah, I mean, everyone wants to feel good. Everyone wants to be around people who make them feel good. Everyone wants to feel good, important, heard, cared for. They want their mood to be positive. They want to seem attractive. I don't know that many people who are like, I just want to be miserable all the time and for everybody to hate me. And I want people to spit in my face when I walk down the street because they know all the negative that I've done, because I'm popular for every negative thing I've ever done. Like, I don't know that many people that's their life goal. Unless they think it will make them happy, or unless they get something positive from that type of experience, just from being noticed, even if it's a negative noticed, then I don't think anybody's really saying that, though, honestly. Like, at the end of the day, we all kind of want the same stuff, Socially, we all want the same stuff. We don't want people bothering us. We don't want people, thinking negative about us. We don't want people disliking us. We don't want people being mean to us. When we're by ourselves, we want to be in a good mindset and have energy, and, we want to have good habits, and we want to be healthy. Nobody really wants, illness and sadness and all those types of things. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants it at all. So I guess what I'm trying to say on all this for today is just thinking about, how, if that's what we want, it's within our power to get there, mostly on our own. I mean, we don't really need a lot of outside stuff. I do find it easier to kind of go to something where it's like, okay, I'm listening to this other person saying these things, but I can do that inside my own mind, just actively doing it, just actively trying it and doing it. That's the part that's, it can be a little bit of a challenge, to remember and to do. That kid in the rabbi's kid in the documentary Promises, he talks about the Torah, the Jewish Bible, the first 5 books of the Jewish Bible, and he talks about. Sorry, I got interrupted by a call for dinner. But what I was trying to say was, in the documentary called Promises, there's a kid who talks. He's a religious Jewish kid, and he talks about the Torah, and he talks about learning and doing. He says, like, first you learn, and then you do, and I think that's a pretty powerful statement, because, we do tend to, a lot of us who are into, like, personal development and stuff like that, we do tend to learn. I think the hard part is the doing. Like, for me, at least, I find it easy to learn, to study stuff, learn stuff, but to actually start doing it, I notice how I get very hesitant to start doing something different or new or beneficial. Even, like I mentioned that the other day, I found some things that some other, like, entrepreneurs do, or, like, some people who are, like, heads of companies, like Fortune 500 companies and stuff, and they're, like, doing all these things, and it's pretty cool, like, to see how a lot of them live their lives. But, even if I can study it and learn what they do, for me to actually actively incorporate it regularly into my life, that's a different skill. I think I have a lot of strength in learning when it comes to changing up my routines and incorporating new practices, whatever they may be, whether they're casual or just, for health or mental health or physical health or fun or whatever, you know, I do find it a little hard to just like start. And so, yeah, with all that, it's like I feel like it's worth mentioning, but yeah, like I really do think everyone kind of does want those same positive things in their lives, good things in their lives, just, the learning and the doing. Usually those are the things that we need to do, like either more on the learning side or more on the doing side. And that's kind of one reason why I'm a little bit of not like so interested in like television, because it doesn't really help too much with like personal development types of things. It's entertaining. I think it's fine to have like entertainment and leisure in your life. I think it's part of a good balance. But I feel like, it's hard to really limit that. Like, I know that there were times in my life where, I did have like, maybe not an addiction to television, but maybe almost, like I used to have a TV in my room, and, I couldn't imagine not watching TV every single day. That was something I could never imagine, to never watch TV every day. And I even though I know a lot of people who don't really watch TV or don't have TVs, I know it's still like an odd thing. Like when you tell people, I don't watch TV, I don't have TV, they kind of look at you a little weird and like, really? Like, that's weird of you that you don't have that you don't care to have that you don't care to participate in this thing. And it's not that I don't watch shows or movies or whatever, but yeah, like it's just not something that I'm I'd rather do podcasting or work on music or read or listen to audiobooks. I prefer YouTube and Instagram to television. So I do get a little bit of ads here and there about like different products and stuff, but I really like to type in what I want to watch. I'm really trying to get out of the scroll habit that I have of just like scrolling and seeing what's going to get recommended to me. I'm trying to just go in with a purpose and type in what it is that I want to see and not base my choices on recommendations too much like I have been in the recent past. I do find the scrolling to be a little bit anxiety provoking, in all honesty. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to lately as far as like my thought processes and my thinking and just how I'm, trying to like the different stuff I'm trying to do in my life lately, that I'm finding helpful. And it's like helpful but positively and strangely at times a little bit challenging to do things that are positive, good, happy, easy, relatively easy things. Like none of this is like super hard. But I do find that there is a part of me that just doesn't want to let go of the negativity. It's like, I don't know if I don't want to get my hopes up, or if I don't, like if I'm just really that attached to like negative emotions and negative thoughts so much. Like I don't really know if I am or not. I mean, I must be, or else I would just leave it alone. But I do notice about myself that it does take a long time kind of for me to really kind of like weigh things out. It can take a few months of a process of this, weighing things out one way or another. And once I have it all weighed, then I'll usually come into a decision of like, okay, I've weighed all this out and I have made the decision that I do or don't want to continue at this in this way or whatever. Like, I'll usually weigh it out. And so I was pretty, wanting to kind of, I was really wanting to kind of weigh things out. I mean, it's really going to take me a while with some of this stuff, because even like I mentioned, like when I was trying to move out from the roommates or whatever, like anything that's like a new process for me kind of takes me a bit. And then eventually, like one day I just wake up and I'm like, this is how I'm going to decide to live my life now. Like just how when I left that house, I told that one lady, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go to a hotel. And that was the end of that conversation. I was like, I'm just going to move into a hotel for a while and I can think clearer there. And then the next day sent that message to the whole household of like my boundaries and my expectations. And while everyone else thought it was a good idea, other than the problematic person and the person in charge, everyone else wanted to have this meeting and set these boundaries and things, but those two people didn't. And I was like, well, if you don't want to, I've already made my decision that I'm going to not stay, and it took me a while to get there. And that's kind of how I am with things. I put up with things until I've had enough. And it's kind of how I am with this type of stuff too. It's like I'll put up with it until I'm just like, okay, no more. No more of this not helpful thing. Like I have to be ready to like do that. And so sometimes I notice I'm not, and that's fine too. Like there's nothing wrong with not being ready to do something like that. But it is kind of strange to want to still stay with certain stuff that just doesn't work for me and not let go of it. But I think everybody has things like that they're like, this isn't really serving me, but I'm not gonna let go of it either, because it's serving in some way, but like it's all a process. It's all interesting too, but like I'm not saying that I'm sitting around just thinking negative all day long. I'm just saying that like there are times when I notice that I just actively don't avoid it, I'm just like, I literally am making the decision to not do what I need to do to get out of a certain mindset. I'm just like, no, I'm not going to get out of the mindset. I'm just going to sit and think on this mindset. Like, yeah, I do that sometimes. So but yeah, I guess for now that's kind of all that I kind of have to say. And thanks for listening.